Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, Monday morning, everyone. Welcome. Hope everyone had a fantastic week. Man, I knew it was going to be cold when I got up. I did not know it was going to be that cold.
It was
I wasn't
so cold
paying.
on
I
Sunday.
know it's just been unpleasant. Tomorrow, I think it's supposed to get a little bit better. Well, of course, you'll get us
Yep, I'll
updated
fill
and all
you
that.
in.
But man, I mean, just I like.
It's just because we were used to like the 60s and the 70s. No, it was cold though.
Yeah, well, and like I said this morning, it was just that painful cold when you walk out. So you definitely want to get that jacket on, and it's not one of those days where you probably won't need it later in the day. Are we even going to break? What's the high today?
39.
Okay, so yeah,
You're probably going to need it all day.
pretty unpleasant. All right, so there's a lot of, obviously, it seems like Monday, this is the day, so a lot of stuff happening over the weekend. You got that whole thing in Mexico going on. You got the continued build-up with a potential, full-on war with Iran. And people just do not know what is going to happen because Trump is unpredictable. And again, that is his big strength. That is something that he intentionally does so that it just puts the opposition in a position of not being able to, all right, well, they're going to do this, so let's do this in order to counter that. And I think even people that have a pretty good line on Trump and have him figured out don't know what he's going to do, because when you figure him out, you know that that's the way that he operates. He very, very, very intentionally leaves people to where you look at it and go, well, he's just bluffing. He's just showing them that, hey, look how far we're willing to go. But you just can't dismiss out of hand that he might decide, you know what, listen, our reputation's on the line here. We made it very clear that there are certain no-nos, and those no-nos have been ignored, and Iran's just going to have to comply. And if we do not force that compliance or just punish them for refusing to comply, then that really sends a message to everyone else in the world. Okay, so the USA under Trump does back down sometimes. It would be one thing if we had never weighed in or didn't weigh in the way that we did, in which Trump put him on notice. Hey, listen, if you don't start behaving, among other things, stop slaughtering your own people, then we'll come locked and loaded. And I think part of the seriousness here is the fact that there was messaging to the people of Iran directly from the president of the United States, hence protesters changing street names to Trump in Iran, protesters that in the beginning had a bit of an easier time getting their messages out, were sending messages directly to President Trump because they felt as if he had been messaging them, which he was. And so to go that far and to back off is something that does put the credibility of the United States into potential jeopardy. And I'm sure that Trump gets this stuff. He understands in his years and years and years and decades of working on the art of the deal, you have to make sure everyone, not necessarily the people that you're making deals with today or trying to get the upper hand with today, but those tomorrow and the next day and the next day, that they have to know that you will do what you threaten to do. Because the moment that the enemy of, not even necessarily again today, but the enemy of tomorrow or the next day recognizes that, you will blink because you have blinked, you lose a tremendous amount of your strength and power. And he knows this. I think it probably also is not lost on him and the people in his circle that Barack Obama had really encouraged the Iranian people during his administration to get out there and to protest and made them believe that the United States was behind them. And then when they did so and got slaughtered, our response was to help the Iranians develop nuclear weapons, masquerading as preventing them from doing such. And, the pallets of cash and just, the complete about face that we did under the Obama administration. And, I think that component of recent history and reputation of the United States when it comes to dealing with Iran is something that also isn't lost on the administration. The word is that top leadership in Iran, they've been scrambling essentially to set up a plan for once they're killed, once they're out of there and gone. How much of that is truth versus just some sort of psychological warfare to send the message that they know they're in for it and that they're all but done at this point. We don't know. These situations constantly, of course, you're going to get all sorts of varied information, some of which is just to psych the other side out potentially. And then, of course, like I said, we'll update you the latest in Mexico. Essentially what you have going on there is something that has been going on for some time, but just not with this high of a temperature. And it's a war between the Mexican military and the drug cartels. And with the Mexican military taking out one of their top guys, they've really been retaliating. Now, the word thus far has been that this isn't the sort of effort that is all about deliberately grabbing up hostages and getting foreigners, but it's a situation in which this is a battle against the Mexican government, the Mexican military, and they don't care who gets in the way. I mean, they are not in any way, shape, or form going to go out of their way in order to not cause harm to civilians. But that really at this point isn't necessarily their top priority. That is why those lockdown orders have been put in place, just saying, just stay out of the way. They're not coming door to door looking for tourists. They're not coming door to door looking for, to grab innocent civilians. If you just lock down, then you just, that is what you need to be doing right now. And that's pretty much the main theme coming out of that conflict. So a great deal of stuff going on. And the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. You want to send in any text messages, 447-KSGF. Feel free to do that. We've got weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And for Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
There's a text that came in. Let's see. I think this was actually Friday, but I didn't have a chance to address it. And I thought I would just take a moment to do that before we get into the Friday. Oh, the Trump tariffs, and oh my gosh, and we're gonna just sort of put that into a context. We don't have to get too deep into it, but essentially, if you've noticed, the Trump administration is like, yeah, listen, we may not agree. They said you can't do it this way, but there's like 80 other ways we can. So nothing's really going to change. Now, whether or not that is trying to put a real happy, shiny face on something that isn't going to be as easy to accomplish, or, it is straight up half a dozen, 1/6 or the other, pajamas. Time is going to tell on that. But we will get to that coming up and essentially what the dissent or not the dissent, but the decision was based upon. It wasn't the tariffs themselves at all. In fact, they weren't even ruling that he could not impose those tariffs. Ultimately, what it boiled down to is that they said in their findings, their interpretation, it's that he just did not, under that law, have the authority to, while regulating the tariffs, to get money in doing so for the government. And that is an area in which there was dissent itself. So it didn't have anything to do with the tariffs themselves. It was with the money part of it, which opens up a whole nother can of worms, but that later in the show. There was a text that came in asking if I had seen the Facebook post from Piper from Missouri, basically bashing Republican representatives, wasn't sure if what she's posted is true things. Now, I have seen this, and I believe this is she's a left-wing, crazy left-winger, and I believe she's run for office before. I'm not sure if this is a lead-up to her deciding to run again, and this is a way for her to try and get some publicity. But this is the presentation, because I've seen the postings that she's made, and they're very, very long and exhausting. And it is based upon this premise that the left has utilized before, and that is that our representatives won't meet with their constituents. And it's all theater. It's all for show. What they do is they make themselves known to be individuals that don't actually have any interest whatsoever in having meaningful discussions with lawmakers. And they do this by standing out in front of the offices with blowhorns and screaming and yelling. And once they have made it clear that they're nothing but agitators, then they knock on the front of an office, and they demand to speak to the lawmaker, in which they are turned down. Because it's clear that this is not a person that has any sort of real, true interest in having a meaningful conversation. They just want to cause problems. And every lawmaker is different, but a number of lawmakers, and I can attest to the 7th Congressional, Congressman Burleson, he is a very, 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 very busy individual. This is someone, like a lot of other lawmakers, their calendars are filled with meeting with people. Maybe not always individuals, but they'll go and meet with small business owners, and then they go to this organization over here, and then they go tour this school over there. And so they are very busy, and what they don't have time for is to sit and have somebody with a blowhorn calling them a Nazi and a dictator and a pedophile and all the other meaningless name calling that they utilize. And so then, because they know they're creating a scenario in which the lawmaker is not going to waste their time visiting with them, they then post that these lawmakers, they won't even visit with constituents. Now, mind you, these are the same people that will fully support and applaud Democrats who refuse to attend the State of the Union address. As increasingly, the toddlers that they are on the left are saying that they aren't even going to show up. We're not even going to listen to what the president has to say, which is fine. Knock yourself out. But it rings a bit hollow to praise the refusal to listen to the other side, but then complain as a screaming protester with a blowhorn or a megaphone that you aren't allowed to go into a lawmaker's office and scream and yell at the people who work there. I can guarantee you, in the vast majority of these instances, anyone who is it does not even need to be cut from the same political cloth. But if a constituent, there's a reasonable person whose point isn't to get Facebook clicks, whose point isn't to get a whole bunch of people riled up, screaming and yelling, whose point isn't to get attention by standing out in front of the office with poorly made signs, oftentimes misspelled, screaming at traffic as they go by, that if you aren't one of those people, the lawmaker will visit with you. But they're not into wasting their time. Now, I don't know if this Piper for Missouri gal is just way behind the curve on this, because this is a tactic that has gone to the wayside, or if it is coming back, because most of these things run in cycles, particularly with the left and the way that they operate. And so it could simply be coming back into vogue as a messaging for the midterms, where you, again, create a scenario in which you're not going to be able to get in, and have a sit-down one-on-one with the lawmaker because you create the hostile environment, and then you complain to high heaven that, look, they won't even meet with constituents, they shouldn't get reelected. It's all very old, it's all very tired, and it lacks any sort of critical thinking or intellectualism. It's the thing of toddlers. And that, thus far, has been my impression watching the postings. Because what they're trying, what happens is you have these lawmakers, and so often, if you notice where lawmakers have their offices, it's not in this building that is in and of itself. It is often in a cluster of buildings, and they are renters. They rent out the facility. And so they have other businesses that are all within the same, whether it's a strip mall or, just a cluster of different units. And they all share parking with one another. And so the landlord oftentimes doesn't care to have protesters out there hassling people and yelling at people, particularly when the majority of people that are coming in and out of those parking lots have nothing to do with the lawmaker whatsoever. They're coming in order to pay their insurance, or they're going in because it's a travel agency and they want to make a trip for they and their family. And as you can understand, those businesses, if you're just trying to run a business, you don't care red, blue, left, right, none of that is relevant to you, but you have these irritants out there creating a hostile environment in the parking lot that you use and that your customers use. You can see how they may pick up the phone, call the landlord, and say, will you do something about these people? I know that they hate the congressman or the congresswoman. I know, free speech and all that stuff, but it's hurting my business. And you'd think for a political party, those on the left who run around claiming they care so much about small business people, that they'd be just a little more aware of that particular scenario. But as usual, they don't. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law, planning is very, very important. That planning does not get satisfied by doing a $199 download of a will and trust off the internet. It's very popular to run ads like that, and the reason that those ads get run is because there's a market for people who know that it's something that needs to be done, but you worry about hourly billing, and it's going to be a huge hassle, and, well, gosh, why would I hire someone to do it if I can just download a form and do it myself for $199? You're going to find that that is going to be a painfully obvious poor decision at some point. You're going to realize that. There's a reason people become attorneys and that they have to go to schooling and they do what they do. It's because this stuff isn't as easy as just fill in the blank. And every state's different, incidentally. So you may have even had professionals set everything up for you, planning your future, planning your children's future, power of attorney, wills and trusts and so forth when you were living in Illinois or Colorado. But Missouri laws are different. Every state has different laws. So it's great to find out if you are still secure or if you need to have some things altered. And the visit with the folks at Ozarks Elder Law, that's a courtesy. So you don't have to worry about, just to figure out what you need to do, being in the hole $1,200, because the courtesy is there. So you can know whether or not you want to go ahead and move forward. You'll know what the fee is and what it is that you need to get done. Ozarks Elder Law with 10 area locations. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements, KSGF.com. I'm going to play coming up here the Treasury Secretary, and he was slated to give a speech. Prior to the speech that he was set to give, the Supreme Court decision came down regarding the tariffs. And to the average person, just at a glance, it may appear as if the Supreme Court were saying that Trump did not have the legal authority in order to impose these tariffs, and that is not what happened. It's so funny watching the left run around not even knowing what the decision is about, celebrating this as somehow rebuking Donald Trump, particularly given that we've been told that this court is illegitimate by the Democrats because all they do is rubber stamp everything that Donald Trump wants. We have to expand the Supreme Court. We have to keep adding new members on there because they never do anything right. They're not legitimate. Well, until, of course, they are. This is how it always is with the left. Out of the gate, the Treasury Secretary addressed this, and he was able to do this for a couple of reasons. One, he's a smart guy, but two, this was not unexpected. It was pretty clear, based off of the arguments that occurred when the Supreme Court was hearing this case, that they did not feel as if the administration had the legislative authority or had been granted to the executive branch from the legislative branch the ability to get money for the tariffs that would then go back to the United States. And so I don't believe any of this was a surprise, which is why out of the gate, Trump, the administration, is just moving forward as if nothing really disruptive is occurring when it comes to the tariffs. And the Treasury Secretary explains that. We'll play it coming up. And then some of what Kavanaugh said also. We're not going to get too boring with it, but there's some pretty cut and dry perspectives that in his dissent Kavanaugh gave. Clarence Thomas did as well. So we'll have that coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And for Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, this is a speech that he had been prepared to give. He was at a speaking engagement when, just prior to it, the Supreme Court decision came down regarding tariffs, and he was prepared to speak on it. Again, I suspect because it wasn't really a surprise, the direction that the court went. This was anticipated, and it's the stance from the administration is, I mean, maybe a hiccup, but this is not going to divert us in the policies of the Trump administration when it comes to tariffs. Not because of ignoring the court. This isn't the Biden administration who said, yeah, I don't like the Supreme Court's ruling when it comes to student loans, so I'm just going to ignore them. This is an explanation of all the different avenues, as was noted by the court, Trump can take in order to satisfy his goals.
I would also like to take a moment to address today's Supreme Court ruling, and I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026.
Now, Kavanaugh, in his dissent, made a number of different notations. In fact, Federalist has a piece, 4 of the best lines from Kavanaugh's defense of the Trump tariff power. And one of the points here, Kavanaugh argued that IEEPA gives Trump broad authority to regulate international economic sanctions during declared national emergencies, including the importation of foreign goods. He pointed out that the sole legal question here is whether under IEEPA tariffs are a means to regulate importation. Statutory text, history, and precedent demonstrate the answer is clearly yes. Like quotas and embargoes, tariffs are a traditional and common tool to regulate importation. But it was apparently not clear to the majority. And so just to put this simply, Kavanaugh is saying, look, it's very clear what the purpose of this law is intended. And that is regulating importation. And tariffs are one of those ways. That is a tool of regulation. To him, he writes that that's pretty clear. That is now coming along with that is the raising of revenue. But simply because revenue is created along with this form of regulating importation doesn't mean that it is not regulating importation. It is a regulation. He notes, however, that as clear as that is, it apparently was not clear to the majority. He referenced historical precedent to back up that opinion, noting that Richard Nixon imposed a 10% tariff on most foreign imports in 1971 under the Trading with the Enemies Act, TWIA, which authorized the president to regulate importation. Such tariffs were upheld under the framing, which is the same language that is found in IEEPA. So it's precedent. In creating IEPA, Kavanaugh wrote, Congress divided TWIA into two separate statutes though Congress retained that same regulate importation language in both laws, in TWIA for wartime and IEPA for peacetime national emergencies. In doing so, members of Congress were plainly aware. After all, how could they not be that the regulate importation language had recently been invoked by the president and interpreted by the courts to encompass tariffs? So what he's noting here is that this issue was, the courts have dealt with this issue before, and it was during the Nixon administration. Same thing. And the courts ruled that under the law TWIA, which was the Trading with the Enemies Act, Nixon used a tariff for the purpose, as the language in that law stated, to regulate importation. Then what Congress did was turn this law into two laws, one specifically dealing with wartime versus one peacetime, language being the same, other than wartime versus peacetime. And so what is happening here is the peacetime version of the law, TWIA, is what went before the Supreme Court, but as Kavanaugh noted here, in conflict with the previous court's ruling, I mean, not this court's, but previous Supreme Court ruling, with the Trading with the Enemies Act, that yes, a tariff is a valid form of regulating importation, but now they're saying that it no longer is. And that is a direct conflict with a previous Supreme Court interpretation. He also questioned the rationality of the majority, trying to limit the president's authority while simultaneously allowing him broader authority. And what he notes here is that, according to the court's opinion, regulating, they said, well, Trump can. He can just completely put an embargo on all tariffs. He just can't make $1 off of it for the country. Even though under TWIA, the courts found that the president could. He noted that as they interpret the statute, the president could, for example, block all imports from China, but cannot order even a $1 tariff on goods imported from China. That approach does not make much sense. Now, one of the messier questions that come along with this is what happens to all of that revenue that was raised. Because and this has been expected, and this is something that Trump warned of, that now you're going to have all of these different businesses that are going to line up, that were subject to the tariff, and they're going to say, we want that money back. And it's going to be very interesting to see where it is that Democrats fall on this, because they're already, and Senator Kennedy noted this on Friday, that he's noticed a lot of his Democrat colleagues are calling for that money to be returned to the corporations. Well, that's pretty interesting, given that we've been told all along that it wasn't the corporations who actually paid this, it was the consumer. So should the consumer get, and of course, how do you do that? I mean, this is a situation in which a bell cannot be unrung. It also is going to leave the Democrats open to appearing as if they are very pro-corporation and anti-consumer, and that I'll explain coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. there's an interesting scenario that has been set up here now with the Supreme Court's decision that while Trump does have the authority to utilize tariffs in the fashion that he did, what he does not have the authority to do is to utilize, or he's got the right to regulate tariffs, but not by way of financially doing so. So in order, like putting tariffs on. So it's the regulation of importation. He's got all that authority, but doing it in a way that raises money, nope, can't do it. Which is where the dissent says it doesn't even make sense, and this contradicts the previous court's decision during the Nixon administration. But all that aside, so there's a couple of different approaches to take. One is, and this appears to be where the argument is right now, there's plenty of other statute authority gives the authority in which Trump can do this. Now, Senator Kennedy pointed out that, quote, my Democratic colleagues are saying, oh, give it back, saying my Democratic peeps better be careful what they ask for, because if he gives $300 billion worth of tariff money to the business community in America, this economy is going to roar, and the midterms are only a few months away. In January alone, the tariff revenue totaled $30.4 billion, a 275% increase compared to January of 2025. The White House said that the funds could help pay for domestic initiatives, reduce the national debt. So this has been something that's up in the air. Now, I suspect what the Democrats are going to try and do here is make it appear as if Trump is ignoring the Supreme Court by not returning the money, which, of course, is not consistent with the facts. This is all part of the process. The Trump administration is saying, okay, fine, we understand that, but now this statutory authority that we have over here, we believe that it does allow us to do this, and so now we're going to, and if you have a problem with it, then you can just challenge us in court, and we'll do this again when it comes to an application of this particular authority that we believe that we have. This is how the system works. But Democrats are going to want to portray him as thinking that he's king, and that the refusal to return the dollars is something that simply is his defiance of democracy and ignoring the separation of powers. And then these left-wingers will be dispatched to go out there with their no king signs again throughout the community. Now, to whom, if Trump was required, let's say that they play this game, and you know what? Going into the midterms, Trump could play this game. But instead of returning it to the corporations, which is what the Democrats out of the gate appear to be suggesting, just return it to the people. Are the Democrats then really, because listen, we know as irrational as it is, whatever Trump does, the Democrats take the opposite side. So what you would have here is Democrats saying, no, all of this money needs to go to these corporations as opposed to the citizens. The party that runs around talking about how corporations don't pay their fair share, that corporations need to do more in terms of paying taxes, are suddenly going to start arguing that all of that tariff revenue needs to go to the big corporations? Is that what they want to argue? If Trump did decide that that was the route he was going to go, the interesting thing is this would be consistent with something that he floated last year. You may recall that as this revenue began coming in, he was talking about writing checks to the American people for it. Like this might be one of the things that gets done with it, is giving the American people checks. Now, it didn't get a lot of traction because it was largely Trump supporters that were saying, no, this should be used in order to pay down the debt. That's what needs to happen. That is the fiscally responsible thing. And that is the pathway towards more fiscally sound a policy, which is going to, in the long term, if you stick with it, be more financially advantageous than getting some $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 check. it would be almost worth watching it play out for Trump to announce that we are going to go ahead and move forward using other statutory authority to collect these tariffs. But what we have collected thus far, we are going to send to the American people just to see what Democrats do, to see if, in fact, Democrats say, no, it should go to these corporations instead. And if they try to accuse Trump of simply doing this, playing politics or going into the midterms, and then reminding them, Trump has for a very long time argued that perhaps this is what those dollars should be used for, going directly to the American consumer. This was one of these decisions that came down and very loudly was proclaimed as rebuking Donald Trump and portrayed as, something that was very altering in terms of the course of the Trump administration, in terms of leveraging that executive power authority over other countries for a number of different reasons. But it doesn't appear as if in any real meaningful way it is going to do any of that whatsoever. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Now, I want to clarify because I jumbled some of the verbiage in talking about the Supreme Court decision and noting that the Supreme Court acknowledged the Trump administration's through the law, the legislation, as an executive to regulate importation. I think I said regulate tariffs, but it was the regulation of importations, which the dissent was arguing, well, that's what a tariff is. A tariff is a form of a regulation, saying that if you do this, then this is what's going to happen. And that's where the divide was over. So, again, this had nothing ultimately to do with the court deciding Trump did not have the ability to regulate the importation of products into the United States, just saying that, well, you couldn't use a tariff in order to do it, which again, as Kavanaugh pointed out, is a complete contradiction to a previous Supreme Court ruling during the Nixon administration. But I just wanted to clear that up in terms of the verbiage. Scott Jennings, CNN, he had a real clear take on this, not just the ruling itself, but again, this is the reaction to this by the Trump administration is the opposite of what we're told this administration is, and that is a dictatorship. Now, mind you, when the Democrats did not care for the Supreme Court decision regarding student loans, they said what? Everything from we need to abolish the Supreme Court to we need to keep adding new Supreme Court justices. And Joe Biden just flat out bragged about the fact that he ignored the Supreme Court. Here's Scott Jennings' description of how the Trump administration deals with the Supreme Court that rules in a way that's inconsistent with their desires.
I will just say, politically today, it was a big breaking news day, but I just think we ought to acknowledge something. This is a properly functioning government today. The President of the United States, the head of the executive branch, made a policy decision. The Supreme Court, that renders legal opinions about these kinds of decisions, made a decision. They said you can't do that. The President of the United States said, okay, I agree, and I will acknowledge your decision. I'm going to use a different statute to try to do what I want to do. This is properly functioning government. And I'll tell you one more thing. For every Democrat and every media person that has gone on for the last year or two about how the Supreme Court is a wholly owned subsidiary of Donald Trump, that it's not independent, that it does whatever he says to do, obviously that narrative was obliterated today. So to me, I thought the ruling was sound. I think the president is sound to try other statutes. And I think the narratives about the court not being independent and the president not obeying the court were totally blown up today.
And of course, he's exactly right. And you put it up against, once again, the way that Democrats behave when a ruling doesn't go their way, and that is just ignore the courts, brag about it, fundraise off it, say that the courts should be fundamentally changed altogether because they didn't get their way. It's quite a difference. News in 60 seconds. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, to have it done the best. Not just right, but the absolute best. Outdoor living space, lighting, drainage. Hunter Hardscapes, that is the route that you want to go. It's the folks that we utilize for our outdoor living space. We have what I would consider to be relatively modest, and a next round of work that we're hoping to do maybe in the next year or so is along the lines of landscaping area. One of the great things about what they do is they can design for you in phases. And in fact, that was essentially what we had planned on doing. We have an outdoor living space that we had together with Daniel Hunter developed that we would like. And so the first phase was done in a way to where you don't see it and go, oh, this is halfway done. They have those skills so that it is a complete job that can be added on to in a way that doesn't look like, oh, this was added on to either. But after 6 months of utilizing the space that we had, we're like, you know what? I think this actually, I don't know that we need more of the living space area. And so, we're going to go for some landscaping and perhaps outdoor lighting as well. And I just mention that because for some folks, maybe doing it all at once is biting off a bit more than you can chew. And so they can work with you in order to do things in phases. And so that way, maybe you do find yourself like me and maybe you don't know, well, do we need one this big or this, start off a little bit modest and then decide after utilizing it for a season or two if you want to go beyond that. But that's what they can help you do. They are the absolute best in the area. You can read their reviews and see before and after work at hunterhardscapes.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Boy, we've just done really well with hockey. I mean, you see women's hockey and then men's hockey beating Canada. Which I don't know. There's just something a little bit satisfying about that for a number of different reasons. But I think perhaps part of the whole episode that is most satisfying to a lot of people is that the players were just unapologetically go USA. And you would think that would be a given because once upon a time it was in this country. Before the left began taking politics and injecting it into absolutely everything, into entertainment, into Thanksgiving, into sports. We, once upon a time in this country, politics was just, it was on the back burner. And I guess I'm glad I grew up in that era, and I feel
lucky.
It is. And because people who grew up in the era in which the left has injected politics into everything, you can't really understand what it was like before, where days and days and weeks, months would go by, and no one, you would be a human being. And unless you just sat down and watched the nightly news, you would go months and months and not have a thought about things that were going on politically. Now, some may argue that probably was not necessarily, a sign of the most informed citizen. But one, the internet wasn't there. And even the nightly news, it would not be uncommon to have days go by in which there was nothing coming out of the White House. There were no stories about the President of the United States. Can you imagine? Media outlets going days without having something about Donald Trump. And to go from a time in which people would go to church, go to work, go to their social outings, get together with family, and there was just no, it wasn't a lack of discussion because of some sort of unspoken rule. It just wasn't injected into everything. So it wasn't a thought that people had. And one of the real damaging things that have been done, I think largely in our institutions of education, is train young people to believe that it's their duty to do that. You have to confront your family. You have to confront your friends. You have to look at even the way that so much of the media treats the Olympics. it's this loyalty test where, they ask a question about what's it like representing the United States with Donald Trump as president. Everything is this world to the left where you have to prove yourself. There's this comedian, I think he's actually a sort of a political lefty comedian, and he talks about how, people on the left, you're never left enough, and that when conservatives get together, and if you're talking about politics, and, well, what are you? Are you, yeah, well, I'm conservative. Oh, okay, cool, me too. But on the left, if someone says to another liberal, I'm a liberal, the response is, yeah, we'll see. You're never liberal enough. You have to prove yourself constantly. Silence is violence. If you don't speak up, then you're bad. You're horrible. And I'm here to tell you, and, there's two categories listening right now. Those who know because they have lived in a time when the left had not managed to do this to us. And that is a category of individuals listening right now. They're like, man, boy, you're right. Gosh, I almost forgot what it was like. And then there's that category of individuals that have never known that world. To, turn on even just sitcoms and not have some sort of political ideology injected into the messaging. It's interesting because I watch shows that are older shows from my era, and a show, I'll give you two examples, but Golden Girls actually is a really good example. And Golden Girls was really credited with addressing issues that weren't oftentimes addressed, that would be social issues. And, one of them, for example, was a storyline where Blanche finds out that her brother's gay and that he's married and having to deal with that. And so I've thought to myself, I'm like, well, what's the difference between programs during that era that would address the issue versus when those issues get addressed today? And if you watch programs that address societal issues from then versus now, I think it becomes clear that back then it wasn't done in a manner that made one person's like if you have a perspective that is on the opposite side of the writers, you didn't feel shamed watching the episode. You didn't feel as if you were being lectured. It wasn't. It really was, in oftentimes for the sake of humor, illustrating both sides and the conflicts that come along with it and some of the humor in it. But it wasn't an after-school special that was virtue signaling at you. And that's how all of that is today. I mean, you go and you're like, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to be lectured at because I'm a Christian or a conservative, or right, there's going to be something that, that some storyline about what a bigot my beliefs are. And it didn't used to be that way. It was very, very nice. Until this divisiveness comes in. And I'll be honest with you, a large part of the reason, though, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm one that sits around waiting for the Olympics and why. But there have been a few events that I've thought, oh, this might be interesting. But I haven't watched it because I thought, wait, what are they going to do or say? Is it going to be one of these athletes that then afterwards talk about how horrible it is in this country to be LGBTQ? And I just don't want to watch it. So it's really, really refreshing when you get Jack Hughes, who is one of the members of Team USA Hockey after their win over Canada.
This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love my teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong. And we have so much support from ex-players. And I'm so proud to be American today. Proud.
It was such an incredible game to grind out. I mean, you're bleeding right through it just looking at you right now. Can you just talk about how difficult this gold medal was to win?
Unbelievable game by Hellebuck. He was our best player tonight by a mile. Unbelievable game. Unreal game by our team. That's just a ballsy, gutsy win. That's American hockey right there. That's a great Canadian team, but we're USA. We're so proud to be Americans. Tonight was all for the country.
What does this gold medal mean to USA Hockey?
It's everything. Like I said, the USA Hockey Brotherhood means so much. Look at these guys. We're such a team. We've been together for 2 weeks. We're such a team. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong, and we're so proud to win for our country.
Isn't that just
That
so
is
much?
so refreshing.
It just makes you feel good as opposed to this. Well, it's just a really confusing time right now, and yeah, I mean, I love being an American, but there's just a lot of things going on that it's just exhausting, and then to have that uplifting a messaging of joy and togetherness, and it's just nice. It's so refreshing, and it makes you. This is part of it. I think that this is perspective. There's a time for everything. There's a time to have discussions about things that aren't necessarily the best and positive. But for the left, there's no gauging of that. It's like in fact, a moment that should be just about happiness and joy, in their minds, that's a sign of privilege, and so they have to bring it down a peg or two. It's their job to be Debbie Downer. If they see people that are just in the moment, very happy and ecstatic, and go USA. Well, you just don't understand how bad we are, and you might be sending the wrong message to people that that we're not a country of racist and we're not an anti-LGBTQ country, and so it's their job to make sure people are fully informed. It's just this negative perspective in which you're never allowed to just be happy. If you notice, even when the left gets their people in office, they don't find joy. These same people who will protest and say that they're miserable, they'll say it's because Donald Trump's in the Oval Office, but they were just as miserable when Joe Biden was in there and Barack Obama was in there. Now, they may have their little moments of celebration, but their baseline feeling is one of misery and constantly having to point out how horrible things are. And just aside from the political, you take the political out of it, that's just such a downer. And when you have people that are in the Olympics in this moment that should be absolutely filled with joy, and instead you instinctively focus on the negative, that's just not pleasant. And to have this unapologetic expression of joy and just be ecstatic as is appropriate in the moment, it's just really, really great to see. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And for Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
In addition to the audio that we play, I don't have the audio, and I didn't see it, but I understand that when the women's hockey won and they were doing the medal presentation and our national anthem was playing, that they were belting it out as
I'll
well.
see if I can find it.
Yeah, which it's just like, you wonder, what is it culturally about hockey that, at least in this instance, is a demonstration of pride in America versus what you see from, like, the soccer, for example. And I know soccer, it's got sort of the European ties to it, but I've never really considered hockey to necessarily be an American sport like football. And so now some people have flat out suggested it's because it's tougher and manliness, and the more a person is in tune with the merits of success, the more likely they are to be someone that is proud of themselves and proud of their country, as opposed to that more of a entitled mentality that less manly guys tend to have and are more I don't know. It is an interesting thing to me, though, to see like an entire team, that entire culture. After the win, they were in what I guess is the locker room, and I'm sure this also is something that just infuriates the left as they sat around singing Toby Keith's "Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue." So that's even that's almost MAGA, which of course you can't have. And this is the thing that I guess I just really reflect on, is that I know instinctively people on the left hate that joy. It is something that runs counter to their instinct. Kash Patel, he's been over there because of the massive amount of security integration that the U.S. has been offering, and then of course, obviously, while he's there, he has been observing some of the games, and now he's being attacked because he was celebrating with Team USA after the win, because of course. The idea of joy, of happiness, of Go America is the antithesis of everything on the left. And, all of this should be no-brainer stuff. This really is the divide that we have in this country. And that is the American who just instinctively understands and gets the joy of celebrating a win like this versus those who don't. Individual human beings who have been trained to always see the negative, to never enjoy life, and to allow the negative, no matter how out of context it may be, to override the joy and happiness. And you may know people like this in real life. The political slant being completely taken out of it. People who just, when they see people that are joyful, that they gripe about it, they complain about it, they find the negative in it, and they're just, as a default, unhappy people. And you can't really necessarily think the way that people who think differently than you think. But you do try, and I don't know, why would you do that? Why would that be your go-to? Why, when it's just unhappiness? But that it really, you notice it's the driving force behind so much of this. It isn't even, see, there's this belief that liberal people are unhappy but I have come to believe that unhappy people are liberal. And I know that may seem like, oh, it's some sort of clever play on words, but it really isn't. I think if you are just a naturally unhappy individual, and when you look at the two political pathways, you can't make it in a merit-based, look at the bright side. It doesn't mean Pollyannish. It doesn't mean ignoring the negatives, but there's a time for that. There's a time for attacking the negative and fixing it and making it, and the recognition that as Americans we can make it better. If you are a naturally miserable, unhappy person, you're never going to succeed on a day-to-day basis as somebody who is conservative, because you're always looking at the negative and how bad things were once upon a time, and how, well, there's no way this person can overcome that, and finding an ID is too hard, and if you're it's just negative, negative, negative. And so I don't necessarily believe that otherwise happy people who are liberals suddenly become miserable. I think more so that it's miserable people naturally become liberal in their political ideology. Now, that being said, coming up, Ocasio-Cortez has taken to social media to push back against those who recognized her embarrassing, it wasn't even really an answer, but the question that she was asked regarding the U.S.'s policy, what we should do if China invades Taiwan. And this is probably one of the two most basic, fundamental foreign policy questions, and it was clear she had no idea what to say. Now, what her take on this is, she's not the one who is wrong or who is the problem here. It's everyone else. And we'll play that next. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight, mostly clear with a low near 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And taking a look at Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
You had mentioned that so we were talking about the girls hockey that won the gold and how they were all excited about it also. But what has actually gone viral from that, I don't know if you've seen it. The women's Canadian team, they gave them stuffed animals during the ceremony. And I don't know what they were stuffed. I guess it was I don't even know what it was supposed to be. But obviously those gals, they're pretty emotional. They lost. And and then they're being handed like one by one these stuffed animals, and some of them kind of look at it like, what the hell is this? And I just really thought to myself, why would you? That's worse than not doing anything. It was such a weird deal, and I don't know if that is something that all of the second place teams in the sports are getting, but it was so weird.
I think that Team USA had them as well. And in fact, I think that there was a figure skater that had them around her neck as well. And I was like, what are those? So
maybe everybody gets it. Well, the reason that, I don't know how viral it's going, but it was being shared around, is just because they were clearly very upset. And here they're being handed these little stuffed animals. And some of them kind of look at it like, are you serious? I mean, it wasn't real overt. Some of them took them gracefully, but I could understand. It seemed like the sort of thing you'd give them in the locker room, or, hey, here's a little trinket for you. Anyway, I guess the Olympics are done now. They had their closing ceremony.
I don't know. I honestly
don't understand. I watched the opening ceremonies, which I actually thought it was pretty good, but didn't see anything beyond that. AOC goes to Instagram to explain her performance in Munich. There was the International Security Conference there, and you had people speaking to audiences, presumably because they had something to offer in terms of international security. That's the point of the conference. And Ocasio-Cortez, of course, she had gotten asked a question about the United States and what we should do should China invade Taiwan. She had no clue. I mean, this wasn't even an artful dodge. It was very uncomfortable pauses. It was equated to that poor gal during the Miss Teen USA event in which she was asked about education in America, and it just was very uncomfortable, very awkward, and it was the same thing. It wasn't a bad answer. It was a non-answer by someone who clearly was absolutely unprepared. And part of the reason that she got such criticism, even amongst those on the left for it, was because it was not some obscure gotcha question. This is one of the most basic, fundamental issues that administration after administration after administration have had to deal with in terms of a policy. In fact, it is sort of this consistent policy that we have had towards that particular situation in that region of the world, from Democrat to Republican to Democrat to Republican. And so it was the fact that this was a question that was not a gotcha question. It was almost obligatory as a question. One would see it potentially as a warm-up question, just to sort of get things going. All right, we're going to start with an easy one. Remember, do they still have the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And like the very first few questions where the audience would laugh because they were such obvious questions with obvious answers, just to kind of get you going, get you in the mode of things, get you past the nervousness. And that's what that question, not that it's an easy question with an easy answer, but it's one that you know is coming. Well, she has now gone to Instagram to give her take on that whole situation.
Saying that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth. I'm afraid the issue is not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks.
Is that husband in the background?
No, I
snoring?
don't
What
know.
is
I
that?
don't know what that was. I'm not really sure what that sound was as part of the video. I don't know. But her answer essentially was it's Trump's fault. Because Trump doesn't think before he speaks. And see, what we were observing when she was making Kamala Harris sound intelligent was a very disciplined, artful thought process of someone who recognized the magnitude of the question. And unlike somebody like Donald Trump, who's bringing peace to the Middle East and is got, I don't even know how many peace deals now signed and, all of that, as opposed to some idiot like him who doesn't know what he's doing, she was demonstrating to us how true leadership answers or doesn't answer a question, but we failed to recognize it. We are the problem. Those are her words. Maybe you're the problem because we've become accustomed to Donald Trump, and so we think the way that he does things is successful. We don't recognize what a true intelligent statesman's like. This is the it's going to sound a little self-serving, but Democrats, you must find brighter people to be your future. I would love to live in a country in which, although I obviously may have disagreements with policy with one of the two political parties more so than the other, if at the very least they had competent people. It would be nice to have two options of individuals that even if your option does not win, you think, well, at least, there's competency in the White House. At least when it comes to foreign affairs, this person isn't going to make us completely vulnerable. Can you imagine what the Putins and the Kim Jong-uns and the Taliban and leadership in Hamas? Can you even fathom what a candy store the world would be to them if somebody like Ocasio-Cortez were in the White House? People on the left have managed to put themselves in such a vacuum. And they have allowed themselves to be so controlled by hate. They don't recognize the real life implications of this stuff. The United States is not the entire world. There are a lot of other countries out there, many of which would love to do us real harm, would give anything to have an Ocasio-Cortez in the White House. And the fact that as a political party, when it comes to picking individuals that are sent to be on the world stage for the entire world to see, you have got to start getting better and brighter people. Please, for the sake of the country. I don't even care if they know what they're talking about. Step one is having someone who can at least sound like they do. But typical left-winger. It isn't her fault. It's your fault because you did not understand what it means to observe somebody with such intellect that has such a grasp of foreign policy because of all the, quote, hours that she has spent. Not years, not decades, but hours she has spent studying such issues. And the reason you don't appreciate her, the reason that you are a problem is because of Donald Trump. Her posting of this Instagram message is somewhat humorously contradicted by what some of her supporters had said, and that was you can't really blame her because it's not like she's Secretary of State. They tried to downplay her. Well, I mean, it's not her fault. I mean, she's only a member of Congress. Yeah, who votes on these things? But that aside, they tried to cast her as, it's unfair to expect her to know these things because she isn't in a position in which she should know these things. Well, that's not the position she's taking. Her position is that she fully is equipped and demonstrated that before the world. So even her supporters on the left, who tried to defend her by claiming she can't help herself, it's not her fault, she sees you as part of the problem as well because you don't recognize her brilliance. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, really pride ourselves on connecting up with some of the absolute best in their industry, and one of those individuals is Emily Johnson. For years, we've been really connecting her up with so many of you. I know some of you personally, friends of mine that have utilized her services. Of course, Sarah, the home that she and her family's in, that is thanks to the very persistent and patient character traits that Emily Johnson embodies. After 2 years of nearly giving up in frustration, the one person who didn't give up was Emily Johnson. I know many of you have had those experiences as well, whether it's a story that we couldn't believe how quickly things happened and it would not have happened as quickly as they did if it weren't for Emily Johnson, or those of you who have been frustrated because you thought, oh, we're never going to, we're just being too picky. And she's there to remind you, now listen, you want certain things for specific reasons. You need to keep that in mind, and helping navigate you through that. Buying or selling, perhaps both at the same time, for all of your home needs. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I've got to play this audio. This is just, I can't believe some of the things that come out of the mouths of Democrats. Gavin Newsom is in Georgia, and he is up on stage, one-on-one conversation with the host of this little talk. And I don't know who the host is, but he is a black man. And the audience is a black audience, as it has been described. This is what Gavin Newsom said before this black audience, attempting to relate to them.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940, but literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
So Gavin Newsom here is in Georgia, and he is trying to relate to a black crowd. And if you don't know, 960 is not an impressive score on an SAT. And he tells the black audience, I'm like you. Here are the reasons why. I don't score well on tests, and I can't read. I'm telling you, these Democrats unknowingly reveal their racism. And it really gets unleashed when they are trying to relate to an audience of black people. I mean, Hillary Clinton with the hot sauce, or Hillary Clinton and a number of other candidates when they're before a black audience and they start using what they think black people sound like, because apparently in their minds that is the way you make a black person understand. These are people who run around still claiming black people don't have the same intellectual capacity to get a photo ID that white people have. Gavin Newsom explaining, hey, I'm one of you. Psh, I can't take tests and I can't read. You've never seen, I'm just like you black folk. It is, on one hand, it's hilarious. But on the other hand, this white sort of savior complex of superiority that the left has, the fact that when they pander in this way, they are exposing what they believe is a representation of a black person by default. But the fact that they don't recognize that as being racist, or that being as, you want to talk about almost projecting what you believe is the superiority of a white person, like a white supremacy. As a white person, to tell black people that, hey, I know what it's like to be you. I don't take very good tests, or I don't score well on tests, and I can't read. I like hot sauce. I also don't know how to get a photo ID. I'm just an idiot, just like you black people. And the fact that that segment of the population continues to support a political party that demonstrates so clearly the stereotypes that they fully buy into regarding black people in this country is a remarkable feat. It's sad, but remarkable at the same time. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Pyramid, they always focus on doing roofing the right way, not the fast way. They always use high-quality materials, and they always pay attention to the details that sometimes other companies overlook, like proper installation, strong underlayment, and protecting the most vulnerable areas on your roof so it actually holds up long-term. Now, whether your roof has, taken on some storm damage, maybe the normal wear and tear, or maybe you're just trying to figure out how much life your roof has left, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections for you. They don't try to upsell, and they don't use scare tactics either. And if you do find yourself needing a new roof, the Pyramid team, they offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
We played audio on the previous segment of Gavin Newsom in Georgia before a black audience claiming that he was just like them because he got bad scores on tests and doesn't read very well. Stephen Colbert has, of course, refused to have, when it comes to the U.S. Senate primary down there on the Democrat side, either of the two candidates of color on, only the white guy. And Jasmine Crockett, for her part, has revealed, this was on Friday on Morning Joe, that still she has not been given the invitation. Now, this is the background on this. Stephen Colbert falsely claimed that the Trump administration threatened CBS and told them that they could not have the interview with the white candidate on. And that, of course, was not true. Equal time means that if you help a candidate out by giving them an interview, you also have to give that candidate's opponents. And in the Democrat primary, Jasmine Crockett is one of the opponents, along with some other guy that I don't think he's polling hardly anything that's registering, but he is an Egyptian guy. And so Stephen Colbert, instead of giving equal time to the two minority candidates, just decided to not air over the public airwaves the white guy candidate, Tallarico. Where are all of you left-wingers that cry racism with any and everything that ever is an obstacle to a person of color? Where are you? This is a remarkable thing, particularly given that we're talking about Jasmine Crockett and that Stephen Colbert would rather not air the Tallarico interview than to have a black person that is the opponent on his show, and you don't say a peep? The reason that we've gone over this, that Colbert, he is, without question, trying to rig the election. He does not want Jasmine Crockett to win. And this isn't anything new or surprising. There have been a number of high-profile celebrity Democrats who have gotten in hot water and apologized by encouraging people not to donate to her because they believe that if she is the one who ends up winning the primary, they lose the likelihood of flipping that seat. So they don't want her to win. And to have one of the most praised liberals in Hollywood trying to rig so clearly an election against a person of color and the left be fine with it, I think tells us a lot. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Welcome to hour number 3. I'm Nick Reed. We have Heroes Breakfast Friday.
That is correct.
Did you remember that?
I did, actually.
I remembered it earlier than I forgot, and so I just now remembered.
I have it on my calendar.
Heroes Breakfast coming up Friday. If you're a veteran, join us. Of course, we'll do our Friday Road Show out at Scramblers, and between 6 and 9 if you're a veteran, you're going to get free breakfast. That thanks to Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, Delta Roofing, the Warriors Journey, an incredible organization, and, of course, Scramblers. Oh, so how about this for a story? My dad's stepmom, 2 of my sisters and 2 of my nieces are in Mexico on vacation. Great time, of course.
Right.
Now they're in Cabo, so they're not in all of this harm's way. But I got a text from my dad yesterday, and he was telling me that he ran into someone who was like, "Oh, you got a Missouri hat on." And through the conversation, he's like, "Yeah, my parents own a place called Scramblers in Springfield,
No
Missouri."
kidding.
Yes.
What a small world.
I know. I was like, "Yep, I know his parents. That's where we do the show every single Friday." So yeah, in Cabo, running into the guy. Isn't that funny? Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, we've got the Heroes Breakfast. Be sure to come by and join us. That will be this Friday from 6 to 9 at Scramblers. We've got an in-studio guest that I'm pretty excited about, and in order to get to him sooner than later, we're going to go ahead and jump on over to Carissa Codell, get the latest news, get traffic and weather as well. Here is that latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And for Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
So there was last night, I don't know, some comedian. We get these that venue that we've got is we get some really great high profile individuals, and I know that some of our stations, the Nate Bargatze performance, and was it? I mean, it was a huge venue. We've got Greg Warren in here, and he did the opening, and kind enough to swing by after the show in studio, which is awesome.
Yeah, man. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, a good show last night.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was great, man. It's hard to not have a good show with 10,000 people or whatever in there, and Nate's the biggest comedian in the world right now, and it's really I get to be on a lot of shows with him. It's just a blast.
Well, you're watching television with my wife last night and saw a couple of promos for this new game show. You're part of that, right?
Yeah, it's called The Greatest Average American. Yeah. Nate created a game show, and he's the host. And excuse me, about 30 hours before they started taping, I was doing a show with Nate in Cincinnati. He's like, "Hey, I need a co-host on this thing. What are you doing this week?" I'm like, "I think I got shows." He's like, "Well, I got to run it by ABC.
Yeah.
I'll let you know tomorrow." So I get a text literally the day before they start taping. He's like, "Have your agent call ABC and make the deal. Be in Nashville tomorrow morning." And so we did a TV show.
And so, if I understand correctly from the promos I've seen, the premise is it's trivia, but the answers are what average Americans think the answer is, right? So you're not looking for the right answer; you're looking for what do other people think the right answer is.
Yeah, it's 3 segments. The first segment is like, what do Americans think?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second segment is you have to predict how Nate will do on some challenge. So it's like, it could be Nate has to name all the state capitals, or as many as he can, and you predict like how many you think he can get. Or some of it's like Nate's going to try to hit wiffle balls into the audience, and how many can he do? That was my favorite by far of all of them. Like that like, and then like he does really well on some stuff and really poorly on some stuff. And then the third one is like the audience, the studio audience. They pulled him and like, "Hey, this is how they answer the questions." And then it gets really exciting. I think the winner gets the average American salary of $79,000.
That's a good concept.
And Nate pays the taxes. So it's like it's a pretty big prize.
Yeah,
man.
no
I
kidding.
mean, I didn't think about it going into it, but like I was going crazy when people won. It was awesome.
Wednesday it premieres on ABC?
Wednesday, yeah, ABC and Hulu. Yeah.
And Greatest Average American.
Yeah.
You were telling me you're actually from Springfield.
I was born here.
Yeah.
My dad was going to school at Southwest back then.
Right.
Yeah.
SMSU.
Yeah. And he was on the wrestling team here.
And so here you're doing a performance on that campus.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And then I've been coming to Springfield to do shows for a while. Always enjoy it.
So we're talking with Greg Warren. How old were you when you thought, I want to do this? What made you think that? What was your first experience?
I mean,
this isn't traditional what you do. This isn't like, I needed a job over this summer, and so Dairy Queen was hiring, and that's how I got into the restaurant industry. This is not traditional. I don't know.
Maybe no. I remember getting an Eddie Murphy cassette tape when I was in high school. I wasn't exposed to a lot of stand-up, so I remember like listening to it a billion times with my friends. And then I went to Mizzou, and there was a comedy club, Deja Vu, there that I worked at, and I was like, oh, people do this.
Right.
And then I didn't quite have the guts to do it right out of college, so I took a job. I was in sales. I sold Jif peanut butter for 10 years for Procter & Gamble.
Okay. So like you go to grocery outlets and get them to carry it? You sell it like that?
Yeah, man. I wasn't going door to door.
Well, I didn't know if there was an era of Jif that I was unaware of.
Yeah. So I would go call on like I mean, AWG was a big
okay.
Yeah, they were a big client of ours. Yeah. I mean, everybody was. So yeah, I would call on grocery chains, and I got promoted throughout that thing. And then the whole time I was doing stand up on the side, sort of as like a hobby. And then I was like, man, I think this is starting to go pretty well. And then I had a few people. You remember Kevin Pollak?
Yeah. Shorter guy?
He was like Lieutenant Weinberg in the Few Good Men.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's a comic, and I worked with him one weekend, and it was not that far from A Few Good Men, so the place was packed, man, and it was pretty awesome. And at the end of the week, he was like, "Hey, I heard you don't really do this." I go, "Yeah, I sell peanut butter." And he's like, he goes, "You could do this, man. You could do this." And I went back to work that Monday, and I couldn't focus. I was like, I gotta try this. So,
What's been, if there has been, just horrible experience?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's no escaping that. Like, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
The one that stands out, I think, is maybe about 10 years in. After I quit my job, I was doing pretty well. Thought it was kind of a big deal, and I got a gig. My friend Kathleen Madigan got me a gig.
Oh yeah, she's funny.
She's great.
Is she from St. Louis?
She's
right?
from St. Louis, yeah. She got me a gig doing for the Cardinals, and I'm a huge lifelong Cardinal fan. So it was like for Tony La Russa. He called me up, and I did this gig, and nobody was paying attention, and I ate it so hard. And I literally was looking out, and I could tell you the lifetime stats of 17 people that were not laughing at my performance. It was brutal. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna kill here.
Right.
Then they're gonna have me in the dugout.
Right.
You know, I can go down there
First
whenever I want.
pitch.
Yeah.
Hanging out, get my own uniform.
Yeah. It was
Talking with Greg Warren. I've always thought that just being an opener would be challenging regardless. So now you're opening like you did last night, a comedian that people are coming to see. So at least their minds are in the right place of we're here for comedy.
Yeah.
But they are kind of anticipating, so you've got that going. But then I think how difficult it's got to be. I've seen before where they'll be opening for a concert or something that, and to me, I'm like, the audience's mind isn't in that state of mind. So I've always thought that's got to be really challenging.
I mean, on the Nate shows,
Yeah.
honestly, it's not. It's sort of the
That's
easiest
awesome.
gig in the world for a couple reasons. One, I mean, there's so many people. He's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Two, I mean, because of, like, he's produced my specials. I have a podcast that he produces. Like, a lot of people know who I am.
Right.
And then, but he has a warm-up guy, Julian McCullough, who's just as good as anybody. Julian goes out there for about 20 minutes and just talks to the audience, almost like at the club. And like he gets them to a place where they are ready to see comedy. And then he brings out three of us and we all do short sets. And then Nate comes out. So it's, I don't want to say it's a pretty easy gig.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And there's 10,000 people there, sometimes 20,000 people at some of these venues. So
I don't know if this question will make sense, so I might have to like really clarify it. But
yeah.
Do you find that are all stand-up comedians naturally funny? And then are all naturally funny people, do you think, able to be comedians? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. I mean, I sort of have a belief that if you're not funny around your friends and your family, I don't think you're going to wind up being that good. Wherever you're very comfortable,
Right.
The people that you like and are, if you make them laugh, there's probably some path. Now, the second part of your question is like, if you're funny around your friends and family, can you be a comedian? Yes, but you sort of have to go through this like brutal 10 to 15 year like thing where you're just.
It's longer than it takes to be a doctor.
I mean, it is. It really does take much longer. And that sounds crazy. Now you're having fun and making some money here and there on the way, but like, it takes longer than being a doctor because it's just an unnatural thing.
Right.
So eventually, that person that's funny around your friends and family, you just sort of relax and that comes out.
Yeah.
But you fail miserably. So now you built up all these defense things. Like, I can't ever let that happen. And then you sort of take on this persona that's not really who you are just to get through it. And then eventually you're like, okay, I'm killing every night, but I'm not really me. And then you strip some of that away.
Yeah, I guess that's another question. Did you find yourself when you're starting out mimicking others that you admired, and then you thought, well, wait a minute, I'm not being authentic. I need to be more me, and too hard to try to be someone else.
Oh yeah, I mean early on there was like stupid stuff, but I mean, and then but I think we're all influenced on some level. I mean,
Yeah,
I have
right.
people that older people especially are like, you were a Bob Newhart fan, weren't you? I'm like, yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. I mean, there's probably a little of him, hopefully not too much, but a little of his delivery style and mannerisms that there.
Yeah, and I've often thought back to sort of the previous question. People, and I don't know if you ever got this. People like, yeah, my friends, they all say I'm really funny. I should be a stand-up comedian, and then that thought, like, it's not that easy.
Yeah,
I know the sound of voice I don't think is as important in radio as it used to be, but early on when I was doing DJ stuff, I'd have friends that they'd say, my friends, they say I got a good voice. I think I could be in radio. And I'm thinking, there is a little more to it than that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that is an important component, but it's not that simple.
No, it's definitely not. Although you have, I mean, you said 4 words, and I was like, yeah, this guy's, yeah, you definitely sound like.
Unfortunate, it helps.
Yeah. I think I also encourage people, man, because I'm getting to live a dream. So, like, if you're somebody that looks at the world a little differently, if your friends laugh at you or your family laughs at you, like, go try it. I mean, go do an open mic night or go do whatever. Yeah. But it takes a crazy long time to get comfortable or good. And I've seen people that are like Nate. Nate was somewhat of a prodigy, man. I saw him. We did a thing for country music television, like, I don't know, probably 20 years ago. He was just a kid, and we were doing this taping, and you're like, oh, this kid's unbelievable. Like, he's really talented. But even him, and Nate's dad was an entertainer. So
okay,
Nate's dad's a magician, like a world-class magician,
no kidding,
and extremely funny. Okay. Like, his dad's really funny. Yeah. So, like, when you meet his dad, you're like, okay,
I get it.
Some of this, he's worked incredibly hard, but some of this he got, But even him, like, it wasn't like he came out of the gate killing. Nobody does.
Well, and I think someone like him, they come onto the stage, and the world stage. And a lot of people do. They think, well, this guy got a late start in life. He's some 40-year-old guy that must have just thought, hey, I'm going to take, a shot at being a comedian, and he happened to hit it big. And so many of those high-profile people are, like you're describing here, they've been doing it forever. We just didn't know it.
Yeah, and he got all the stuff. Like, Nate, I mean, other than, like, network TV sitcoms, they screwed up. Like, he had a couple that they should have done. Now he's like, I don't want to do that. I'm doing movies, but he's, but I mean, all the stand-up stuff from the time he was probably 25 years old, he was doing stand-up on TV every year, and me too. Like, I got to do a bunch of that stuff, but it's not like you get on TV and then all of a sudden, you're famous.
Impulse Buy tour.
Yeah.
Underway now. This is your tour, and you're going to be back doing your show at the Galois April 11th.
Yeah, man. That's
and you've been here before. You've done shows here before.
Done a lot of shows in Springfield. Did a few shows at the Galois several years ago with a radio tour. But this is my first show where it's my show at a theater.
That's cool.
In Springfield. I've been doing a lot of clubs. I've done the club here for years, and they're starting to push me into, like, let's try some theaters. And like, the first weekend that we're trying is Columbia on Friday night, and then Springfield on a Saturday night in April. Okay. So it's in my home state, so it's pretty cool.
Well, be sure. When you come back through, let us know.
Okay.
And I mean, I know it's not easy to always get in the studio, but we'd love to have you in the studio.
This is great, man. This worked out perfect.
Well, and you had mentioned you've got a buddy that's got a show in St. Louis, so you pop in with him every so often.
Her.
Yeah,
my friend Courtney has a radio show that I'm.
What's the format?
It's like just morning show format. Yeah.
Is it music though?
Yeah, it's music. Yeah. Adult I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
They pop music that I like. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, like, probably
Oldies.
80. Yeah. It's from Fibber McGee and Molly show. It's it's like 80s, 90s.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'd love for you to come back and hang out with us. You've got the site gregwarrencomedy.com, and people can get tickets there. Is that right?
Yeah, or
Okay.
you can go to the Galois'
Got it.
website or Ticketmaster. Maybe not Ticketmaster. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure. Sarah's real good about finding all that stuff, and we'll get it up on our social media and our website as well, so people can find it.
And it's good talking to you.
Yeah,
guys,
no,
man.
hey,
Yeah,
listen,
thanks, man.
really appreciate you stopping by, and like I said, hopefully we'll see you in April.
Awesome, man.
Greg Warren, everyone. Again, gregwarrencomedy.com. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. That was a nice little...
I liked it. It was a palate cleanser.
Yeah, little palate cleanser. Greg Warren, nice guy. I like... One of the things that I like about comedians is they just really seem normal for the most part.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
a lot of times when they get big. Now, you get some of them that may sort of become a little off kilter, but a lot of times you get this sense that when actors and actresses become big, I don't know, you can understand why they change just a little bit, but a lot of more times than not, if you have a chance to sit down and talk with some of these different comedians that do this for a living, they just seem so normal to me. And I don't know, maybe that says something about maybe I'm not normal. Maybe they're not. Because it's not the sort of thing they say got to be a psychopath to really be somebody that runs for high profile office, or a sociopath to be president of the United States. I think there may be something just a little off for somebody that wants to be a stand-up comedian. To stand up there, make yourself subject to all that. I think it's awesome. But anyhow, I bet it'll be a good show.
I bet so.
We have his info up on our site. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
KSGF.com.
All right. So if you want to, learn any more, and he's got a stand-up comedy special called The Champ. It was released almost a year ago, and it's on YouTube. So if you just, I guess, put in Greg Warren, The Champ, you'll be able to find it there and watch some of his stuff. We've got weather coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest traffic update for the morning. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 39. Tonight mostly clear with a low near 24. For your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high near 61. And for Wednesday, partly sunny with a high near 63.
All right, so here's a story that I'm just going to tell you. I guess it depends on your perspective. I think it's funny. Some people may not. You know what the BAFTA awards are? The BAFTA award. These are movie film awards over in England.
Okay.
And they recently had, this may have been last night, their awards show on the BBC. And of course, the audience is filled with other celebrities or people connected to celebrities. And there was a film I'm not familiar with, but it was called I Swear, and it was centered around a guy with Tourette's syndrome. I think most people know what Tourette's syndrome is, and where it varies. For some people, it's physical tics. Some people, it's more verbal. They will oftentimes make loud noises or even words. And so, as you can imagine, it's completely disruptive. Well, the guy that the movie I Swear was based upon was in the audience. His name's John Davidson. And during the awards ceremony, it was broadcast on the BBC. Two of the actors from the movie Sinners were on stage. I think they were getting ready to present an award or something. And it's Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, two of the stars of Sinners. Are you familiar with the movie Sinners?
Yes.
Okay. Lead characters are black.
I think it's an all-black cast, actually.
It could be. I haven't seen it. I started to watch it one day, and then for some reason I didn't finish it. But so they're up there, and everything is being broadcast live. They're up there, the two black actors, and from the audience, as loud as possibly can be, is John Davidson, the Tourette syndrome individual, yells the N-word.
Oh.
Now, can you imagine how that is the sort of thing that you would write into a movie script of some sort of dark comedy or a Naked Gun style comedy or so. And I guess he continued to be quite disruptive. Of course, he couldn't help it, and he apparently excused himself halfway through the ceremony and decided that it just was obviously too disruptive. And the BBC issued an apology. Nobody's dogging on the guy for it because it's something that obviously he can't help. But I mean, can you imagine? It's just, I feel bad for the guy. Of all of the things, it's those intrusive thoughts that oftentimes it seems like people with Tourette's will yell out that are just very inappropriate. And oh my gosh, that it's, if you can't laugh about things like that, then I think there's no hope for you. Ma'am Donnie, things haven't been going great for him as mayor of New York City. He has become known just in the couple of months that he has been mayor as going back on his word, some of his promises, already threatening to, well, he says it's inevitable. He is going to raise the cost of living for people in New York by raising their taxes on property taxes in order to fund some of these projects. Some of the things that he promised would be funded, now he says will not be funded. And when it comes to the just day-to-day operations of snow removal, this has been an utter disaster. And they have received a tremendous amount of snow, so it's not like we're talking an inch or two. And part of this this effort has been sort of a call to shovels, if you will, and that is calling the community to help shovel. Bring your shovels, and the community will be part of the effort to get the snow removal done and taken care of. And one of the requirements in order to get paid to do this is you have to show numerous forms of ID. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the stance that Democrats take when it comes to providing identification, they say that that is Jim Crow 2.0. That is an obstacle put in the way of black people to make sure that they can't vote. Their argument is that black people, though many of us disagree with this, but their argument is black people do not have the mental capabilities that other people do in order to get a photo ID. And so anytime you require a photo ID, this is simply putting something into place that you know black people can't accomplish to prevent them from voting. Now, interestingly enough, many of the Jim Crow laws were put into place to prevent black people from integrating into work society and having these different obstacles put into place. So this actually would be really in line with a Jim Crow style law if you truly believe black people aren't capable of getting IDs, to say, here are these jobs that we're offering. At a time which you're talking about New York City and the affordability factor, so many people, so many citizens would just love to be able to make some extra money in order to cover the bills. But Mamdani then announces that you have to, not just once or twice, but on numerous occasions, show a photo ID, which we're told is done in order to prevent black people from participating. Mamdani was asked about this at a press conference, and this was his response to the reporter's question.
There's been this controversy over the snow labor and the sort of what some see as onerous need to have documentation. Can you just talk about if that's new and what you make of the controversy?
This is all long-standing. This is a long-standing program and long-standing requirements, and this is a way that New Yorkers get paid to shovel snow in assistance with the city's response to a winter storm event. Federal law requires that employers get authorization and documentation to pay people for their work. We are not allowed to just cut checks to individuals for their work. And these are the policies that we've had in place, but I understand that for many it's the first time that they've ever heard about it.
Oh, so now it's okay. Now, I'm sorry. This is a mayor who is arguing, hey, we don't have any choice. It's federal law. Is this not the same guy that just 2 weeks ago said that when it came to federal law, the Quran took supremacy over it, and that's why he would have a policy of not enforcing federal immigration laws? Because those federal immigration laws were counter to the Islamic teachings in the Quran, and so he was going to use his power as mayor to make sure that those laws weren't abided by. But suddenly, when it comes to giving black people jobs, now he's like, I can't do it. Nope, that's just the way it is. It's always been Jim Crow 2.0, and nothing I can do about it as mayor. Sorry. Isn't that remarkable? Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Tax season underway. A lot of folks getting, on average, more than they expected. What to do with it? Well, Pinnaker Honda, the Max Your Tax Refund event, among other things, brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport, $289 a month. Or drive home the super sporty 26 Honda Civic Sedan Sport, only $179 a month. 25 Honda Pilot, $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49%. Plus, they have the 1.49% available on select certified pre-owned vehicles, and that happens for another week up until March 2nd with a huge selection. quality pre-owned vehicles. I would definitely take advantage of it. Swing by. Pinniger family, great folks, and I've read to you oftentimes the reviews, and they are not reviews that you generally hear regarding places that sell vehicles. We all know the reputations that fairly or otherwise car dealerships get. It's quite the opposite you see with the Pinniger family and their folks at any of their Pinniger locations, and that's the sort of experience that you can expect to get. Recommend. Check them out. South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, Pinniger Honda. There's some, what I would say, refreshing audio from a video in Pennsylvania. And we've got all over the country these walkouts that have been occurring. We've seen it with some of the Springfield public schools and the tremendous and brave sacrifice some of these young people are making to get out of school early or skip class. I mean, it almost puts to shame what some of the true civil rights icons went through and the sacrifices they made when you see 15 and 16-year-olds getting out of class early. I mean, it is almost awe-inspiring. And while some schools like those in Missouri not only are able to walk out the students out of class, you have, like we saw in Springfield, administrators helping them facilitate it. Meanwhile, states that are actually serious about children's education, like Florida and Texas, are saying, no, we don't think so. That's not what this is about. This is not what schools are for. And in states like Florida and Texas, issuing suspensions instead of encouraging students to virtue signal by skipping class, actually teaching them that there are such things as rules. And if you want to make some sort of difference in life, do something meaningful instead of probably the one thing that you would love to do anyhow, any given day, and that is skip class. Up in this is Wilson High School, Spring Township, Pennsylvania, and this is one principal, as you can imagine, the phones are always out, and how he dealt with students that walked out in the name of supporting illegal immigration.
Okay, for offering outside bounds appointment granted, that event was canceled. If you left school without permission. Your rights do not supersede the school. So if you understand that, that is your option. If you wish to return, Dr. Damiani will let you in that door over there. If not, I will be getting your name. You will be suspended. Okay? Those are your options. Right? Your rights do not exceed that of the school.
It's been interesting to watch how different school districts deal with this and how different states deal with it, and the states that are taking the approach of treating education as a serious endeavor. And these are places of learning, not for little social experiments, and not, again, I mean, let's be honest. This is skipping class. This is what kids love to do. This is what usually the bad students would just do without coming up with some sort of excuse to do it. They would just skip class. But some of those that are a little more clever slap on some sort of left-wing cause to their skipping of class. And depending on where you are in this country, some get praised as so brave, and as we've seen in Springfield, they get listed as just exercising their First Amendment rights, and we just think this is so valuable, while in other states that actually are serious about education, they put a stop to this stuff. This is another one of these areas in which Missouri just really is sort of slides lazily through the middle, where we've got this sort of just this mediocrity on full display. And Missouri's not the only one. But you have these massive walkouts that, again, just skipping class. virtue signaling all the way. You actually have administrators that are facilitating it, at least in the Springfield Public School District. And it's just like, well, kids will be kids. I guess they're the ones who are actually in charge. They're in charge if you let them be in charge. And the problem is, anytime that the students are allowed to be in charge, it isn't the students who actually have the greatest interest in becoming educated. There's a video of students wreaking havoc that this was last week in a Cincinnati Kroger after walking out of school for an anti-ICE demonstration. And of course, most of them didn't even come back to school. Some went home. Some went to loot stores. In one video taken by McAdrian Martin, who was shopping at the time of the incident, students ran through the aisles, throwing objects at the store's ceiling. Martin said there were beer cans and other adult beverages that had been ripped from the shelves. The security guard yelled at the students to get out of the store. A female patron told Martin in the video, F ICE. They just came over here and went to the beer section and started throwing beers. The students walked out of school in the North College Hill School City District to protest ICE, part of the ongoing national trend. The left-wing activists claim is student-driven. That school condemned the behavior in a Facebook post, even linking to the now viral video. The North College Hill Police Department said this video is disturbing and the parents and families of these students should be embarrassed. Identify these students so they can be held accountable for the disorderly behavior. The department's interim police chief also posted a statement on Facebook. First and foremost, we recognize that peaceful expression is a constitutional right. Our department respects the rights of students and community members to assemble and express their views lawfully and peacefully. During the high school protest, officers were present to ensure the safety of students, staff, and the public. Our primary role is to maintain order, prevent traffic hazards, and ensure that no one was placed at risk. Well, clearly that didn't happen. There was one instance of a student getting clipped by a car during a protest. Another in which, and I forget what city it's in, but you had it looked like there were more than dozens of students running across an interstate during a heavy trafficked area. All, of course, for the cause of illegal immigration. Very virtuous. And again, you see the two extremes. You see the side that says, just kids will be that facilitate the escaping of school, and then they get the looting of the stores, the running out into traffic, putting kids' lives in danger. You have states that have it together and districts that have it together that says, no, that's not how this works. You're not in charge. We are. You're here to learn. There's plenty of extracurricular time to put together a protest if you want to. Not happening during school hours, and you will be suspended and punished if you do it. And then you have states like Missouri, it's like, well, in which they actually help facilitate it, at least in some school districts like Springfield. And no real, it's just this mediocrity that we so oftentimes see, where we kind of seemingly pretend as if these things aren't happening. Just be nice to see a little bit of leadership when it comes to some of these particular issues. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. There are just some companies that you just keep coming back to because they just make things easy. And that is exactly what you will get with Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, they work on multiple types of heating and cooling systems, and they take care of both residential and commercial customers. And if life just, happens after hours, they offer a 24/7 emergency service line, so help is always available when you need it the most. In fact, I had to use that emergency service line a couple weeks ago, and the Foreman team, they are just awesome. I had a service tech out within probably an hour after I called. It was something just silly that I did, and they had me up and running within probably 20 minutes or so. Now, if you are looking for a dependable HVAC company you can trust year-round, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air is the one to call. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
One of the more disturbing displays that we saw after the assassination of Charlie Kirk were people in education that supported it, celebrated it. There was one video that went viral of a teacher, and she had done the, on video at a protest, the gunshot to the neck motion, demonstrating that assassination. And, anytime that happens, then it's, treated like almost a sort of a standard procedure, an internal issue, and we never really hear about any of these people getting punished. Then there's the other side of it. From the New York Post, an upstate New York high school teacher has allegedly been sidelined after she agreed to advise a Turning Point USA chapter on campus. Jennifer Fasulo, a Spanish teacher at Charles Baker High School in Baldwinsville, a Syracuse suburb, was placed on paid leave of absence on January 30th, just weeks after she offered to help students establish a Club America, which is the high school division of the Turning Point USA. The Baldwinville Central High School informed the parents in a February 10th letter the district can confirm that a staff member has been placed on paid administrative leave while a matter is under review or following established administrative and legal procedures, and we are unable to comment further or share additional details at this time. Students are rallying behind the teacher, who they described in a petition demanding her return as a victim of spiritual and political discrimination. Quote, "We believe no educator should be punished for their personal beliefs," according to the appeal, which had more than 2,100 signatures as of Thursday. Quote, "This teacher is being targeted not because of her performance, but because of her political beliefs," Club America President Jerry Dygert said at a February 9th board meeting. "Our club exists to promote political understanding through civil discourse. Removing the one teacher who best embodies those values puts that mission in serious jeopardy. My classmates and I are confused as to why she's not in class. She extends her title as teacher and is considered a mentor. The wisdom and compassion that she gives to her students is unmatched. But some students, woke parents who think otherwise, want to see the teacher fired." One described Turning Point as terrifying because, according to their Facebook post, the most extreme mindset tends to affect boys and young men the most. In her post, she called for discussion about the potential termination of the advisor. "Organized hate groups have no place in our public schools. Would you want a KKK chapter, a neo-Nazi?" Another parent wrote. Now, this again is what we have seen over and over again. And that is how the left lies about their position on freedom of speech. If a teacher celebrates the assassination of an American citizen because he believes in debate with political opposition, the schools will generally default on, hey, that is their freedom of speech. And while we may not necessarily agree with the message, we believe in that teacher's right to say it. Those very same people, however, when you have a teacher that simply wants or has offered to be an advisor to a student-led group that is Turning Point USA, they should not be allowed to do so. That person should be fired. The freedom of speech issue is no longer in play. Glenn Beck's coming up next. Talk with you tomorrow.